And our next speaker is Lauren Cox from the University of Cambridge, and I will refer you to the booklet for the bios, also for the sake of time. The title of Lauren Cox's paper is Odysseus in Color and Text, a case study exploring how reception studies can help 17-year-old students' understanding of Homeric heroism.
Hello everyone, greetings from Surrey in England. That's where I'm calling from. And actually I teach in a sixth form college. So I teach 16 to 18-year-olds classical civilization as an A-level. And I teach them the Odyssey as a set text. So we cover in September the beginning, and we normally finish by December time, around Christmas. We actually finish the text, and in the second year we teach the Aeneid. My students are really keen. They're very passionate, but the problem with their essay writing was that they couldn't extend their analysis, especially in their 30 markers. They need to try and extend their analysis more and understand the complex themes that we teach them in classics. So themes such as Kleos or Xenia, Time. And so I decided to use classical reception as a kind of springboard to try and help broaden their own understanding of these complex issues. I'm sure all of you have experience of trying to relay these to other students. So my students that I was teaching for this, they were only 16, 17 years old. We used different images and different set texts. So different classical reception texts to kind of bring that message across. And I'll explain what those were in a minute. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So yeah, we're looking at how their understanding of Homeric heroism in particular could be improved and developed through using classical reception in the classroom. We critically viewed vases, paintings, and modern text to try and explore the character of Odysseus specifically. So just to try and narrow down the project, I decided to do just one character, and Odysseus is pretty central to them and their exam knowledge. And you know, the method for this research project was to collect loads of content analysis. So it was collaborative classwork predominantly, which I have a picture for you actually on the next slide. So if I could have the next slide, thank you so much. So this is my lesson sequence. So I set them some structured learning, which at the college I teach at, it's kind of flipped learning. So we give them work before the lesson that they need to complete to try and improve their understanding of content covered. And I set them structured learning to do with classical reception in February. Then we did a recap lesson on heroism just after February half term. Then we had a whole Odysseus in pictures lessons. We looked at loads of different, 4 different modern paintings and 4 vases that include Odysseus as the character in a whole lesson. And then in another lesson, we looked at Odysseus in different pieces of literature. So we looked at the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood, Madeline Miller's Circe, and also Zachary Mason's Lost Books of the Odyssey. And the students really engaged with these. They loved them. It was far more tangible for them to be looking at these kind of sources than to be looking at purely text-based information for a lot of them. So it made a nice change to lessons. And then in March, they wrote a 30-mark essay on Kleos for me. So we looked at Homeric glory, whether that is Odysseus's main motivation or not. It's obviously a very controversial question, which they wrote a whole 30-marker on. And then I gave them feedback for that after Easter, after the Easter break, and after they did their progression exams, because at the college they do a set of exams so that we know how they will progress in the following year, or to try and predict their grades for university. Can I please have the next slide? Thank you so much. So this is an example here of some of the collaborative classwork we did in the Odysseus in colour lesson. So this is one of the paintings that they focused on. This is Odysseus in the underworld, surrounded by the dead. And I'm sure we can all agree this is quite an interesting portrayal of Odysseus as character. You know, he has a very interesting posture there. He is bent over, bent double, yet still holding up his sword in a kind of heroic action. So the students really did get a lot out of these, and I asked them to annotate them with heroism in mind. So how were these images depicting Odysseus as a hero? And there were 8 of these images on different pieces of A3 paper, which was circulated around the classroom. So I gave each group time to annotate a picture, then they would pass on their picture to another set of students, and then they would annotate the next picture. So it meant that all students in that classroom had a chance to see each image and annotate them. Can I have the next slide, please? So in the following lesson, we also looked at Odysseus in text. So just a reminder, we looked at Madeline Miller's Circe, Margaret Atwood's Penelopead, and we also looked at Zachary Mason's Lost Books of the Odyssey. And I really enjoyed reading these texts in preparation for this master's project. It was really enjoyable for me, as well as a teacher. So I recommend all of those texts to you, especially if you're teaching Homer. And, you know, I picked out just very, very small snippets of the text, as you can see here, very, very small snippets that I felt were relevant to the content we've been covering. So here, for example, in Circe by Madeline Miller, Odysseus is reunited with his men. But in this text, they are described as, you know, more of a family, whereas in the text of the Odyssey, Odysseus is compared to a mother cow with the calves frisking around him. So it was the same type of simile that Homer used, but it was in Madeline Miller, which I thought would be an interesting kind of contrasting piece for us to look at in class. So you can see here, though, that I have 8 pieces of A3 paper per my 3 classes, because I teach 51 year 12 classicists here at the college. So that's a lot of paper. So the content analysis, there was a lot of qualitative data. So if I have the next slide, please. Thank you. So my findings at the moment, because I'm actually finishing writing my dissertation now. I've got about a month until I need to hand in the final product. And so at the moment, I'm just trying to sift through and work out which parts of their analysis in class are most interesting for me to include in the dissertation, for me to try and measure how their understanding of Homeric themes have improved with their analysis of classical reception. So, you know, sometimes in that image that I showed you with Odysseus with the sword, sometimes certain parts of the image will have crystallized certain interpretations in their minds. So, you know, there's a lot of annotation around the sword, for example, in each image, which shows something. So I've tried to include that in my work. I've split up my findings as well into a thematic kind of breakdown of their analysis of these images and text. So I've split them up into you know, Kleos, Time, Nostos, and a couple of other areas as well. which might be useful as well when teaching these to students of your own. Yeah, that is pretty much my project, project, and I really am pleased to say that the students have really, I feel, have really enjoyed this project. It's been really good for them to have their preconceptions of Odysseus challenged after the Christmas break that we had, and to try and kind of produce some really productive debate within the classroom. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.